If I am, whatever I'm going to say to you now, I am going to properly interpret the Torah. I am not going to negate it by an excessive usage or misunderstanding of the term but in Aramaic, I'm going to speak in Aramaic so it's clear, din, meaning so therefore. You've heard the sages say that. Now come here and I'll explain to you what they really should be saying. So therefore. Now let's continue. When a NTOC, what's an NTOC? A New Testament only Christian, reads these verses, he goes, there it is. Yeshua is rebuking the Jews and establishing a new truth. Right? Right? No. This is an in-house discussion between what? Between Jews. The Jews are discussing the Torah. What else should Yahudim or praisers of Yah be doing? They're midrashing and discussing and debating and going back and forth over the Torah.
Amen.
This is not us versus them. This is not the Sunday system versus the old Torah system. This is the eternal Torah and how it's to be properly applied in Yisrael. It is an in-house debate. Make sense?
Amen.
Baruch Hashem Yahweh.
Baruch Hashem Yahweh.
But by those who interpret these verses, not understanding, listen, that the Aramaic word din can mean so, therefore, because, or is a thought switch, but because they don't understand it and see these words as a word of contrast, by keeping the bots in there, as opposed to seeing these words as thought switches, it appears that Yeshua is removing parts of the Torah that he doesn't like. Doesn't it appear that way?
Amen.
In other words, some parts of the Torah Yeshua likes, other parts of the Torah he doesn't like. Whenever Yeshua comes across a part of the Torah that he doesn't like, what does he do? He goes, well, the Jews and the Pharisees say this, but I say to you.
Amen.
And so that's the way every translator sees it, as an attack on what they believe. Because they take this Greek word and they limit it to a contrast rather than what it really is in the actual Aramaic, which is merely a thought switch. Hey, it's getting hot in here, so why don't you turn on the air conditioner?
I like that.
It is getting hot in here, but you should turn on the air conditioner. In other words, I got two choices. I could stay hot, but now all of a sudden there's a contrast. Hot, cold. You see what I'm saying? Baruch Hashem Yahweh. I said Baruch Hashem Yahweh. So there are those who use this misunderstanding, not really a misinterpretation, but a misunderstanding, that to make it seem like Yeshua is removing the parts of Torah that will not fit into his new religion, that he is allegedly trying to establish. Nothing is further from the truth. He stacks up his interpretations versus the erroneous interpretations of the Prushim, and that becomes clear by using the Aramaic term din, listen, din, rather than the Greek word. The Greek word here, translated but, now don't misunderstand me, but is not a wrong translation. But in light of the separate entity theology that has developed over 2,000 years, it's become a major problem, and that's why we have to get rid of those big buts, amen? The Greek word is the Greek word de.
Amen.
D-E, de. Which can mean, now check this out, ready?
Amen.
Are we on? Check this out. I mean, this is going to blow your mind. The Greek word day, used here throughout the Sermon on the Mount and elsewhere in the translated Greek Brit Hadashah, not the original Aramaic. The word but can mean, as we said earlier, moreover, etc., and all those other terms that we said earlier. However, this word day or but appears 1,237 times in the Brit Chadashah. 1,237 times. Out of the 1,237 times, it is translated but approximately, looking here at the numbers, approximately 1,200. 18 is translated also just. 16 times is translated yet just. 13 times is translated yea just. 13 times is translated so just. 13 times is translated moreover just. And 11 times is translated nevertheless just. But 1,237 times is translated but. So if you're a Christian and you're not willing to get into the Aramaic, and you're not willing to get into the actual Brit Chadashah in the original language, what are you going to come away thinking? Just what you and I came away thinking. That there's the old versus the new. Grace versus law. Yeshua's teaching versus the teaching of the Jews. Just what you and I used to think. Because out of almost 1,300 times they could have translated the Greek word day as any one of several terms, they invariably translated it as but. See why we have to get into the original Aramaic and study the actual Aramaic? You understand why? Now I'll show you how differently it reads. Matityahu 5. Let's pick it up first in verse 21. Matityahu 5:21. So rather than the Sermon on the Mount picking at the parts of the Torah that Yeshua doesn't like in order to negate it or to nullify it, he's actually upholding the Torah by saying, no, these are not or and or but. These are thought switches. In other words, the Pharisees made you think this way. I'm here to show you how my Father Yahweh wants you to think. Is this too difficult for anyone? Hello? Baruch Hashem Yahweh. I said Baruch Hashem Yahweh. Now watch this. Again, these message, getting rid of the big buts. Matityahu 5:21. You have heard that it was said by them of old time, you shall not kill. And whoever shall murder, I've changed that by the way for the updated edition. Can you imagine that? I never stopped working. You shall not murder, and whoever shall murder shall be in danger of the mishpat. You've heard them say that. You've heard the Ten Commandments. He's not saying the Pharisees, he's not saying you've heard their Talmud teaching. He's saying you've heard them say the mitzvah, the commandment, you shall not murder. And whoever shall murder shall be in danger of the mishpat. Now, in using the term but I say unto you, right? See the difference that makes? But whoever is angry with his brother without cause shall be in danger of the mishpat. Whoever shall say to his brother, Racha, you nothing idiot, shall be in danger of the Sanhedrin. Whoever shall say, you fool, shall be in danger of Gehenna on fire. Therefore, if you bring your gift to the altar, and there remember that your brother has anything against you, and he goes on to speak about the principle of what? Forgiveness. But when we use the word din from the Aramaic, it's just a thought switch. He's saying, you know the Torah commandment that says don't murder, right? You know that. And you've heard it said, do not, whoever murders is in danger of judgment. Isn't that what the Pharisees teach you? Isn't that what the Pharisees teach you? That if you murder, Yahweh will judge you? But then he goes on into more detail, and he says, no, forget about just murdering. If you call your brother a fool, or you call your brother an idiot, or you call your brother anything that's designed to establish second-class citizenship in Israel, hello? He says, verse 26, truly I say to you, you shall not come out from there. So, in other words, he's saying, you've heard the Pharisees talk about the commandment. But, he says, and so I say to you, no. He's not saying, but, now you can kill. He's not saying that. He's saying, but, and I say to you, you see the din, the thought switch? And I say, in other words, they say that. They're not wrong. You shouldn't murder. They're not wrong. And And I say to you, meaning they don't get it, they're not there yet, they're too lenient. If you murder with your tongue and in your heart, in other words, the traditional interpretation was too lenient. Murder and hatred is a heart condition, not merely a physical act. He's not negating the commandment. He's saying they don't go far enough.
Amen.
But in the Greek, you've heard it say don't murder. But how can you but do not murder? There's no but about do not murder. But he's saying basically you've heard him say the right thing, and so therefore, because they were saying the right thing, but they weren't going far enough into the Father's heart, therefore I say to you, don't say racha, don't leave your gift at the altar, don't have hatred in your heart. He's saying that murder is a condition of the heart, not merely a physical act. That the traditional interpretation of Judaism of murder is far too lenient. That's exactly what he's saying. It is too lenient. When Yahweh says don't murder, he has a different thought process in mind. He's saying no murdering with the heart, with the thought, with the consciousness, and with the mouth. Good morning. You understand?
Yeah.
Now go down to verse 27. You have heard that it was said by them of old time. So what is the NTOC that is not seeking the real purpose of Yeshua's teachings? They go, so in other words, Yeshua is rebuking the Pharisees for teaching certain things, right? Isn't that the way they think?
Right.
And that's wrong. Watch. You have heard that it was said by those of old time. What does that sound like? Old Testament, I'm coming to establish the new wine so you can get drunk on the new wine. You don't want to be drinking of the old wine, right? But they stop there. You shall not commit adultery. You've heard them say you shall not commit adultery. But that makes it sound like, well, there are some things you can do in adultery that are not really adultery. But, in other words, the Torah says you shouldn't commit adultery, but I say to you, hey, time out, Yeshua, if you're going to butt anything the Father has told us about adultery, you ought not to be teaching, and you're not the Mashiach. There's no buts here. There's no ifs, ands, or buts. Hello? He's saying, you shall not commit adultery. So, remember that word din can be also translated as what? So, because you shouldn't commit adultery, so I say to you. Meaning, this is what the Father really means, and this is what how the Father really defines adultery. There's no buts here. We got to get rid of those big buts. Abraham's shaking his head, so that's a good sign. Baruch Hashem Yahweh. He's saying here, whoever looks at a mama to make it the lust, you look at the mama to make it the lust, you've already committed adultery.
Amen.
In your heart, meaning you can't do it in the bedroom till it's birthed in your heart. First, it's got to be birthed in your heart, and then you go into the bedroom.
Gotta start somewhere.
It births in the heart. So what Yeshua is not saying, look, you know how the Jews talk about adultery, but let me give you a new Christian definition so you can walk in grace.
All righty then.
My goodness gracious. No, he's saying opposite. He's saying your definition of adultery is too lenient. The traditional understanding of adultery is too lenient. Adultery starts in your heart.
Amen.
And Yahshua is going to show us some stuff that's going to blow us away. Do you understand what the problem here? Not only is he not negating the Torah, he is making it more stringent. He's saying that the problem with the sages is not what they're saying, it's with the leniency they apply in what they're saying.
Amen.
Amen?
Amen.
Now watch this. Verse 31. It has been said, there you go. Verse 31. Who's he talking about now? The leaders of Jewish Israel, it has been said, whoever will put away his wife, divorce his wife, let him give her a get of divorce, where we get the English word get out of here. Just in case you were wondering that all languages didn't originally come from Hebrew. The Jewish certificate to this day, the legal Jewish certificate of divorce, is called a get. So when a Jewish person wants to get rid of their husband or get rid of their wife, they get a get. And in English, what do we say? Get.
Get out of here.
But we don't have a certificate sometimes, we just don't get. Seriously. So there's another clue that even the English language comes from Hebrew. Whoever will put away his wife, let him give her a get. The actual certificate is named a get. So if you speak to a Jew and he goes, oh, I had a wife, she was not paying the tuchis, I gave her a get, I got a job, I moved to another city, all went well, now I'm happier, I should have been happy then, but now I'm happy now.
Oh my
When you
God.
hear a Jew talking about getting a get, he's not talking going to Bermuda for 2 days.
I'm gonna get a get.
Get means he told his wife to get out,
What she told him.
or she told him to get out,
One or the other.
officially. Verse 32. Therefore I say to you, no, but if you look at verse 32, look at verse 32, Matthew 5:32. But I say to you, so it sounds like the rabbis were teaching about getting rid of their wives through divorce. But I say to you, meaning, I am going to establish the Dr. T. James Kennedy type of marriage and divorce regulations. And I am going to tell you that any divorce at any time, under any circumstances, is adultery, and it is wrong.
Yes.
Isn't that what you were taught when you were in NTOC? Isn't that what you were taught when you were in NTOC?
Never
Nope.
there, never there.
Nope.
We were taught, oh yes we were taught that divorce is never allowed by Yahweh, except for fornication.
Exactly.
Don't tell me that's not what you were taught,
Okay.
because I know that's what you were taught.
Never,
Yeah, that is definitely.
Maybe you have one exception. You were not taught that?
never, never.
Well, you were blessed.
Yes.
You're among the blessed. Most of us were taught that. Yes? Can I see your hand if you were taught that? Don't lie to me, please. Thank you. Can I see your hand?
If you were,
We were all taught that, most of us, except my brother here who was blessed. But, so it seems to be, if we stick with the word but in the Greek, and not the word din in the Aramaic, it appears to be saying, Yeshua is saying, you've heard those Jewish people talk about officially divorcing their wife, giving them an official divorce certificate, or a get. No. Let me tell you, because now that I'm coming to establish the New Testament church, we're going to do things differently. Let me tell you how it really should be with divorce.
Let me clear it up.
Whoever puts away his wife except for fornication causes her to commit adultery. And whoever marries another causes her to commit adultery. No. The actual Aramaic, and this is fascinating, listen, the actual Aramaic, as we see here in verse 32, Yeshua is saying, whoever marries her that is undivorced commits adultery. The Pharisees have become so lenient in their regulations for marriage and divorce that they were divorcing their wives and marrying new wives without a get.
oh my God.
They were just lining them up without paperwork, without sanctioning it in the eyes of Yahweh, making it kosher in the eyes of Yahweh. They were going from one wife to another. They were acting like Mormons instead of Yehudim. So Yeshua is saying, look, he's saying, no. He's saying, you say, watch this. He's saying the sages teach correctly that if you're going to put away your wife, you must give her a get. Is that true? Does the Torah allow for divorce?
Yeah, it does.
Let's try that again. Does the Torah allow for divorce? Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeshua said in the beginning, in Adam and Eve, it wasn't so, but for the hardness of your heart, Yahweh allowed it, because Yahweh knew the hardness of your heart, so through Moshe Rabbeinu, he allowed it. In the Garden of Eden, Bereshit, it was not so. Well, guess what? Bereshit, it wasn't Adam and Steve, it was Adam and Eve. There were a lot of things that have gone awry, and there are a lot of things that have gotten screwed up, and there's a lot of things that aren't right, and there's a lot of things that aren't the way they used to be, they ought to be, or they were designed to be.
Amen.
Come on.
Amen.
Tell it.
Because of original sin, or Chet Harishon, Yahweh knew the hardness of man's heart, so he allowed for divorce, but in the beginning, P.S., it wasn't so.
Tell it.
Make sense? So the Pharisees were teaching correctly. The church says no. They were just divorcing their wives for any reason, and the Christian Lord came on the scene to straighten out those Jews. But in the Aramaic, it says this. It says, no. It's saying, I say to you, number one, if you divorce your wife, you put away your wife, verse 32, not but I say to you, therefore I say to you. Therefore what? Because they're teaching the Torah correctly. Because they are teaching the Torah what? Correctly. Din Amar Lecha. Therefore, or so, I'm saying what I'm about to say. Because they're right, not because they're wrong.
Right. Amen. Baruch Hashem Yahweh.
Therefore, if you're going to divorce your wife, except for fornication, that's adultery. He's not saying you can't, he's saying you're committing adultery, period. And whoever divorces his wife, except for the cause of fornication, we got it, and whoever will marry her that is undivorced. Now the Aramaic word here is shivachta, clearly undivorced. Whoever marries shivachta, an undivorced woman commits adultery, meaning if you want to move on, you better make sure the woman you're marrying has been given a get and not thrown out of the house without a get, which is the Torah way to do it. With dignity, with honor, in front of witnesses, in front of rabbis, to do it with dignity, respect, and with honor. But if you're going to marry a woman who is never officially divorced, according to Torah, you're committing adultery. So what Yeshua is actually doing here, listen, it means that those who fornicate are guilty of adultery. Hello? Those who fornicate as a married couple, or being married, are guilty of adultery.
Amen.
But they are as guilty as you Pharisees. In other words, you're teaching the people that if you commit fornication, they've committed adultery. Is that what you're teaching the people? Yeshua said, therefore you're teaching correctly. You're teaching right. But also, P.S., what you're doing is as equally as adulterous as what they're doing. They're divorcing their wives for any reason. Burning the toast, forgetting to lock the door, not making the bed, not using Ajax in the bathtub. You're picking your own reason. Divorce on demand. If you divorce your wife or husband for any reason other than fornication, you're telling the people that they're committing adultery. That's what the Torah teaches. You're right. But even in a case of adultery, you've got to make it official by giving them a get. You've got to make it official. He's saying, if you're telling the people to make it official, how can you turn around and marry an undivorced woman who has never been officially put away according to the Torah? Can it get any simpler?
Can't get no simpler.
And in Aramaic, it's so beautiful because it says, whoever will marry her that is shavachta, undivorced. What does it say in the Greek? Whoever marries her or him that is divorced commits adultery. Exactly the opposite. In the Greek, it says if you marry a divorced man or woman, you're guilty of adultery. In the Aramaic, it's exactly the opposite. If you marry someone who hasn't been given the dignity of a Torah divorce, you commit adultery. Exactly the opposite. Don't tell me the Greek is kind of the same as the Aramaic. Does this blow your mind? So what is Yeshua saying? He's saying, no, he's not saying law versus grace. He's not saying there's a new definition of adultery. No. He's saying the man or woman who cheats on his wife or husband is an adulterer. But so are you guys, because you've married 5 women and none of them were brought before the Sanhedrin or before a halachic court to be put away with class, dignity, and before Yahweh. as Moshe allowed it. In the beginning it wasn't so, but now it's allowed. So he's rebuking their practice of Torah, not the principle of Torah dignified divorce.
Amen.
Now I know this will not fly in most churches. They don't have a clue to the fact that the Torah allows for divorce. And if Yeshua did not allow for divorce, okay, then he contradicts his father's Torah. But in the Aramaic, he does allow for divorce. In the Greek, he does not. Which one do you think is the original document? The one that contradicts the Torah or the one that matches the Torah? Pretty simple. So he's saying you guys are as guilty in what you're doing as the people who fornicate in marriage. He's not saying, no, the Torah says this, but the Torah is wrong, yeah, but I'll help you.
Yeah. Let me straighten that. Let me fix this up.
You got me now. You don't need that.
You have Moshiach, you don't need Moshe. And that's the way we've been taught. I know it because I was taught that way. Do you understand what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Okay. And we've corrected that in the Restoration of Scriptures, Tov. Verse 33. Again, you have heard that it has been said by them of old. Now, it makes it sound, when you read this from a Sunday morning perspective, most pastors will preach this, the Jews said this, and Christ said this, right? You've heard the Jews, you know, those of old. What do you mean, Pastor? Like Old Testament? Like old news? Like the lesser covenant? Like, is that what you mean? Yes, brother. Yes, we're not under the law. We're under grace. Oh, Rachel, you've heard it said by those Jews, you know, those Old Testament, they're in bondage to the old. You've heard all those Old Testament saints. But now, Mashiach has come, and he's going to give you the true revelation. No, he's not coming to negate, but he is saying, he's using a word in Aramaic, din, which is a thought switch. He's saying, if it's wrong to commit fornication in a marriage, it's also wrong for you to marry a girl that hasn't been put away according to the Torah. He's switching their thinking. He's not negating Torah, he's switching their thinking. Can I preach any better than this?
No.
He hasn't come to negate the Torah, he's come to change their, like Joyce Meyer says, change their stinking thinking.
Yeah.
You caught me. He's come to change this. That's what a thought switch does.
That's right.
It's a word that's designed to change your thinking.
Yes.
Amen.
That's
Baruch
right.
Hashem Yahweh.
Yeah.
Todah Rabah Yahweh.
Putting them together.
Verse 33. B explains A but never negates A. Thought B never negates thought A. It gives the, Yeshua is what? Fulfilling the Torah. So the New Testament NTOC says, aha, there it is. Matichahu 5:17, Mateo. Yeshua fulfilled the Torah, so we get to do Easter and Christmas, and we're not under the law. See, he fulfilled it. No, in Hebraic, idiomatic terminology, to fulfill means Yeshua interpreted it properly. Those who destroyed the Torah, misinterpreted. They were either too harsh or too lenient.
Right.
Daryl, I said they were either too harsh or too lenient. So they were destroying the Torah. How? By teaching it incorrectly. So when Yeshua said, I have come to fulfill the Torah, what is he saying?